Today on Melanated Conversations, we amplify the voice of Lisa Butler. Lisa is a licensed clinical social worker in private practice. For over 20 years, she has worked with women and girls to help facilitate emotional healing. She specializes in mother-daughter conflict, self-esteem, forgiveness, shame, and anxiety. Lisa believes that most of our challenges begin with our thoughts about ourselves, others, and the world. In today's chat, Lisa shares her own personal story of transformation from an airline stewardess to helping women and girls facilitate mental and emotional health. And she shares her expertise on how we can cope through our own anxiety during this global pandemic. Listen in as we chat with Lisa Butler. Welcome to Melanated Conversations, our narrative from our perspective.
Here on the podcast, we are amplifying the voices of Black women and sharing their powerful stories of transformation.
I'm Tyrion.
And I'm Yana. Let's start the show.
Welcome back to another episode of Melanated Conversations. I'm your co-host, Tyrion.
And I'm your co-host, Yana.
Welcome back to our listeners. So normally, we're going to change things up just a little bit today. Normally, we would start off with a round of rapid fire questions with our guest today, Miss Lisa Butler. I'm sorry. Yay. Thank you for joining us today, Lisa.
No problem. I'm so happy to be here. So honored. Thank you.
Yeah. So normally, like I said, we would have our round of rapid fire just to get everybody warmed up and comfortable and relaxed. But we just figured we would just kind of go straight into our conversations today. So we're being a little bit unconventional. And this topic that we're talking about, that we're going to talk about today, is a little more serious, especially in light of, probably what the majority of us are dealing with right now. Not just, I think everyone right now. Dealing with the whole coronavirus epidemic or COVID-19. Life is changing drastically for us right now. For some, life has been, put on a halt. So we just want to kind of talk about that a little bit today.
We have it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tyrion.
No, go ahead.
No, we just have a special expert on joining us today to kind of just talk to us and ease our minds a little bit as we navigate through, this current state that we're in right now. So just, join us today in this discussion. We are coming to you with Miss Lisa Butler. Yay!
Hello.
So Lisa, again, thank you so much for joining us today. We definitely appreciate you saying yes and having this conversation with us. It's so timely and is needed. And we just want to just open the floor to you. And if you could just kind of start with sharing a little bit about, you and a little bit about your origin story.
Okay. Well, we could be talking about that for a whole hour. I'll try to cut it down. So I'm old. So first of all, thank you both, Yana and Tyrion, for having me. I had no idea about your podcast until Monique reached out to me with this opportunity. And so now I'm excited about it and I can share it with other people, which I intend to do. A little bit about me. Lot. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker in private practice in Chicago. And for the last 20 plus years, I've been working primarily with African-American women and girls around topics of stress and anxiety, depression, trauma, mother-daughter conflict, and other kind of mental health issues. And I've done group work and individual work. And I'm still doing, I do individual work now. I'm getting ready to start some new groups coming up soon. But I was 16 when I decided that I needed to understand better why people did what they do, why people behave in the ways that they behave. And it started with kind of my own life at 16 being a little chaotic and really having low self-esteem. But I had a class in high school. I went to Hyde Park High School here in Chicago, and we had a psychology class. And my psychology teacher was no joke, Dr. Murray. And she made us get a subscription to Psychology Today. As a part of the class, we had to read the articles and write reports. And it was really the beginning of my love for behaviors. And so from there, I started reading all kinds of books. I remember being 16, reading the Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner. Like, what 16-year-old is reading this? But I remember reading that book and just reading so many others over the years because I truly wanted to know, why we do what we do and how we can change and do something different. And so that really kind of started this path that I've taken over the years. So I left high school and went to a college here in Chicago called Columbia, flunked out, and then decided I was going to go and be a flight attendant.
Oh, I wanted to be a flight attendant.
United Airlines for 10 years, from 89 to 99. I started when I was 20 years old. And did that for 10 years. But during the course of that time, decided that my life was probably a little bit bigger than passing out Coke and ginger ale on the airplane. And I really wanted to go back to, the whole, trying to figure out how I could fit into the world of helping people live different, better lives. And so went back to school while I was flying. And at some point during my tenure at United, I was volunteering for a teen parent program on the South Side of Chicago called the Young Parents Program. And I was a group facilitator for the teen moms. And the person who was running that program had to leave suddenly to take care of her mom. And I was offered the position at a $17,000 pay cut. But it was a master's preferred position at the time. And I was like, I don't have a bachelor, so I don't think I'm going to get it. But there's a special woman in my life who I just saw recently. Her name is Patricia Washington. She was running that program. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I really want you to have the program. And so if you interview for it and you do well, I'll do what I need to do on the back end to get you the position. And that was the start of my social work experience. So, and so then I went back to school and did what I needed to do so that I could do this work full time.
So I assume, obviously, the interview went very well for you. Yes.
Oh, it did.
How long did you stay in that role, and do you still have connects with that program?
That program is gone. I was in that role for about 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. And while I was in that role, I also started, because I was working with teen moms and running groups for them. And while doing that work with them, decided in my own mind that I should start another program for girls who were not pregnant, did not have children. And nobody in my family's ever had a business before. And here I am like, oh, okay, I'll just go ahead and start a program called Black Girl Inc. And got a vendor number from Chicago Public Schools and started running groups in Chicago Public Schools and did that till 2014.
So what specifically did you do in Black Girl Inc.? What was the age range of the girls that you worked with? So
Black Girl Inc. was centered, the girls were 12 to 20. Okay. And the work that we did with that program was really just to increase African American girls' self-esteem, and through critical thinking and exposure to things. I mean, back then I remember always thinking that people had the same opportunities, to go do the stuff that I had done as a young woman. Go downtown, go to Marshall Fields or Macy's, or go to dinner. And I realized while I was working with the girls at the Y that was not the case for most young women in urban Chicago. So a lot of the program we spent taking them places, running these support groups where girls would come every week, either during the school day or after the school day, and talk about different topics every week that they would come up with sometimes, and other times I would come up with them. It was really kind of curriculum driven, and we would take them places and have guest speakers, and every group had food, and I loved it. that was some of my best work, I think, to date. Didn't have the tools that I have now in terms of kind of the understanding of, at the beginning of Black Girl Inc., understanding of the theory, right, behind the work, that I'm doing. But so I hope I didn't mess those kids up. But one of the things I didn't, and I definitely didn't have at that point either, was boundaries. So those girls had my phone number, could call me anytime, day or night.
Wow.
And yeah, that wasn't the best, but I loved them and I wanted to make myself available to them. And so I did. And although I would never do that at this point, I really, that work was just amazing. And I'm glad I was able to do that.
Yeah. So kind of segueing just a little bit. So applying kind of what you did in that time and even now, I know a big piece that you do in your line of work is that you really help people cope with trauma and anxiety. So can you kind of share with us as we, segue into the topic around, the coronavirus pandemic that's going on? What concerns do you have in this space as a mental health care professional around this pandemic that's going on right now?
Well, I have quite a few concerns. My own concerns, obviously, about the change in our lives at this moment in time that's impacting everything and everybody. But my concerns have really been about, because I have quite a few clients who have anxiety, who have panic attacks, a bunch of young women who are already taking medication for their anxiety because they can't manage it just with therapy at this point. And so that's one of my concerns. The other concern I have is folks who are already suffering from depression as well, because if you are watching the television or on social media with either depression or anxiety,
right,
and just allowing yourself to be bombarded with the amount of information and change,
yes,
and everybody's opinion, and it's overwhelming to people who are grounded. Now
right.
I'm talking about me.
I was just about to say that. I was like, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a person that suffers from, depression or anxiety, but man, the overload of information that is that's not surrounded by positive news. It is like at night, I'm like, okay, I've got to I can't anymore. I can't look at anything else. I can't watch any more news. I've got to turn on something. I have to turn on like Living Single. I have to watch something nostalgic
yes,
before I go to sleep.
But even
it's too much,
right? And but it's like it's everywhere. So not even just like when you turn on the news, but we are kind of like just governed kind of a little bit by our phones. We're always near by our devices, and no matter where you turn, and I know we're talking about this now on the podcast, but you turn everywhere you turn, it seems like that is what is, that's the topic. And it's this, you enter in this space of where you want to create this level of balance of being informed. You want to know what's going on because you want to make sure that you're being responsible and doing your part and making sure that you can help curb what's going on. But you don't want to, but it still creates this level of overwhelm because it's just flooding us constantly.
Yes. And I think I'm 50, so I've been on the planet for 50 years and I have never experienced anything like this. And when you start talking about limiting people's autonomy and freedom, that's scary. Because, and all of us have seen all these movies over the years, right? So,
right.
Like, what's happening? So, yeah, just, my concerns are people who are, do have anxiety that is going to be obviously increased during this time. Folks who are suffering from depression and now having to isolate themselves, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a single person or an older person and you live by yourself, now thinking about not, having a lot of social contact except via telephone, things like that. Mm-hmm. So, and then my other thing is, older adults are a demographic that whose suicide rates are generally higher anyway. And so now you have this demographic being really impacted by this particular virus. It's deadlier for them. And And then you're going to add on top of that, and I'm going back to them just kind of having to isolate, spend a lot of time by themselves. I'm concerned that there will be an uptick in suicide among older people, and maybe in general, just because this is an interesting space to be in. And if you don't have the benefit of therapy and people or some spiritual tools and grounding, then your thoughts can take you to a lot of really dark places at this point in our lives, in this point in time in just the United States and what's going on. So I have quite a few concerns about folks now.
Yeah. So with individuals in particular who already suffer from anxiety and fear, and then you add this on top of it, how can people go about unpacking some of that or being able to cope with their anxiety and fear, particularly in this situation?
So it's going to sound simple, but it's not. So one of the things I'm telling my clients right off the bat, all weekend, and the folks that I talked to yesterday, and the person I'm going to talk to tonight, is turn off your television. Give yourself a break from this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it was you, Tyrion, or you, Yana, who said that you are watching Living Single. I'm not sure which one of you said that.
Yeah, that was me.
I do too, though.
So, find something to watch that's funny and light, and get off social media. And I don't know about you all's pages, but I got a lot of intellects who are very cynical on my page. And if I look at my page all day, I would know this was Armageddon and we were getting ready to die. Because that's all they're talking about. And so much cynicism and it's really just coming from a place of fear, and I understand that. But it's I had to get off. I can't and just intake all of that. So I would say that's one of the first things I would recommend that people do. I would also recommend if you're taking anxiety medications that you continue to take them, obviously, as they've been prescribed to you. Definitely, you don't want to not take any medications that you're on for depression or anxiety without your doctor's knowledge. And the other thing that I'm telling people too is anxiety to me, ladies, is constant thinking, worrying, usually about future things, right? So I tell my clients all the time, you're in the moment, right? You're not in those thoughts. And those thoughts are taking you to some place in the future. Mm-hmm. And if you could just for a second put your feet on the floor and take some really deep breaths. You can do techniques that I call 4-4-4 and 7-7-7, which are just really basic kind of mindfulness meditation practices, breathing exercises, where you take these deep inhalations in, count on a hold it, and then exhale on the count. So, and if you can't do that, go someplace, get still, and put your feet on the floor and talk to yourself. Hey, come back here. You over there. I need you to come back over here.
Right.
And understand that right now, today, at this moment, you're safe. Hopefully your needs are being met. And that whatever those thoughts are, they're not happening to you at the moment. And that's really effective if you can make that a practice, which is something I need to say, because you can do that once and then not do it again for several weeks. And then you notice that your anxiety is not really changing. Mm-hmm. The things that I'm talking about today have to become practices. Mindfulness is not a one-hit quit. Yeah. Those are practices that you have to do on a regular basis in order for them to help you get back to a place of peace and centeredness. So I definitely have been doing a lot of mindfulness techniques with my clients, virtually and in person, just over the years, because I think it's important, specifically as it relates to reducing anxiety.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, just kind of on to that, is because this is something that is like a big concern for me, especially more so now that, most schools are out, kids are home. And sometimes, unfortunately for some kids, the school is their space of, their comfort, their place of comfort. And right now, we may have kids right now that are in isolation, that may have already been in depression. Even might even have parents that are trying to navigate and cope, and they're trying to navigate being still trying to work, if some that are working are having to go out there and still make sure that they can bring in a steady income during this, and they're having to make that choice. And we're all in this kind of space of making conscious decisions, but also I think sometimes our mental health can kind of be put on the back burner.
Sure.
How do we unpack that? How, for those that, and just being very frank, from speaking from the Black perspective, we really haven't been this topic hasn't just been, thankfully it's now becoming more and more of a frequent conversation, but we haven't had a constant thread of being able to navigate through our mental health and really unpacking the anxiety and fears and things and talking to someone about what's going on in our experiences. So how do we even take it to that basic level and take those steps?
So I think what you're asking, I think I understand it. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I went into this field with such passion, is because my work has always been centered with Black women and Black girls, Black people. Mm-hmm. And I think that we haven't been privileged enough over the years to even think about our mental health or emotional health. The only thing that we had was Jesus and the church, in large part.
Yes.
And which is helpful and very much a protective space for us in our community, for sure. But I think now people are seemingly very open to it. In my therapy office, in the waiting area, because there are other therapists in there, lots of African-American female therapists in the space that I work in. It's jam-packed on Thursday evenings when I'm there with a lot of young African-American women and men waiting to see somebody. So something is shifting in the perception of, I'm not crazy. I don't need to talk to somebody. People are doing it. And I think one of the things that I want people to think about, and I've been talking about a lot lately, is the correlation between mind and body. So everybody knows, I would assume, maybe not, that Black people are probably the most chronically ill people in this country. Hypertension, diabetes, end-stage renal disease, congestive heart failure, cancers. And the reason why this is the case, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of research is kind of really bearing out at this point, is our mental and emotional space. We don't have any place to put this stuff down. Yeah. And so it has a direct impact on your physical body, on your heart, on your cells, on your amygdala, the parts of the brain that we need to make the decisions, and they're being worn out. And for instance, with trauma specifically, if you live in a neighborhood where you don't have the freedom to walk up and down the streets without something being liable to happen to you, that has a direct impact on your brain. Your fight or flight should not be operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. Right. And when it is operational all the time because you can't afford to put it down, there's never any resting space for it, then you wear out your memory center, which is why we have higher rates of neurocognitive disorders like dementia, Alzheimer's, and things like that. And so for me, a big part of this work is to have people understand that your mind and body are the same. They are nothing, they operate together. So if you are not dealing with what is going on in your heart and unpacking this stuff with a professional, or if you can't afford to do that, finding a space, finding somebody to talk to, or join a yoga class, or finding a support group in your neighborhood that may offer these services. It's critical to being having a healthy life, period, and being able to to do the things that you want to do and create and cultivate joy and peace and those kind of things. It's just not possible to ignore or push down or repress all the things that are going on in our hearts. And I want to say this too. There is no understating of the impact of oppression and daily racism and microaggressions on our mental health. There's no understating, and how those things impact anxiety and depression. There's just no understating of how oppression is definitely playing a role in our emotional and mental disease, for sure.
Yeah. That's a rabbit hole to go down. That is
yes,
a rabbit hole to go down.
Yes, it is.
That's real. Thank you for that. I love the part where you talk about just reminding us that like our minds and our bodies are one and the same. They work together, and if you're not taking care of one, the other is going to suffer, and vice versa. So I love that. That's very important. Yeah. I want to kind of segue a little bit back to for those of us who are parents, like myself, Yana. We both have two daughters, each 2 young daughters, and just want to glean some knowledge from you as far as how we can have the conversation around this change in the pandemic that we're dealing with our children. And the reason why I ask you this is because my oldest daughter, she is 9. And the other night we were sitting down having dinner, and we're just kind of talking about, the things that are prevalent in the news right now surrounding COVID. And she said, "I hate that word coronavirus." And I said, "Why?" And she said, it makes me, it gives me chills, it gives me goosebumps. I just don't like it. Well, my youngest daughter, my youngest daughter being a free spirit that she is, well, she keeps saying it just to aggravate her. Where I was like, okay, that's enough. You got to leave it alone. So later on today, I asked her, I said, "Hey, what's the deal with you not liking the word coronavirus?" She says, "It's okay. You can say COVID-19. She said, "You can call it the Rona. You can call it whatever. Just don't call it coronavirus." And so I asked her, I said, "Can I just ask you, hey, what's the deal with that? Why don't you like that word? And how does that make you feel?" And she said, "It just makes me think of I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick." And so I proceeded to kind of explain to her in a little bit more detail, hey, I understand that, the information that we're getting is that it doesn't look to be as aggressive towards children. We do want to stay safe, but I don't want you to worry about any of that, and you're going to be okay. And she was like, okay, she was fine after that. But just how do we have this conversation with our children, who, like my daughter, was experiencing some anxiety just around the little tidbits that she's been hearing, from us talking or on the news or whatever.
Yeah, and I would like to add, yes, and I'll add to that too, just from with my own daughter. I have a 13 and a 5-year-old, and the 13-year-old, she kind of she understands kind of what's going on more. But with my 5-year-old, just trying to even get her mind around changing, that we're having to kind of shift our behaviors a little bit, and helping them understand you can't go visit your friend. And trying to really break that down to them, to their level of understanding why they can't visit their friends, because they, they're still want to be kids. And how do we navigate that as parents, and, wanting them to be safe. And, we are definitely doing what we can to be proactive and being responsible, but still having to, relay it in a way that's responsive to our children, but still being very careful with their mental state as well.
Yeah.
So I think I want to applaud both of you for the way you're already dealing with it. And I'm really going to just say that that's what has to happen. You have to have moms like you and dads like you and aunts and uncles and whoever's around. Talk to them. 9, it is young, but 9-year-olds understand. 13-year-olds do too. But especially girls, because that's my heart. So, ask them questions. Hey, why are you? What are you thinking about this? If they bring it up, like Terry, I think you were talking about. You're the one with the 9-year-old, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and you were just saying how she said that, and I'm so. I mean, she's a pretty bright kid. She was like, COVID makes it seem a little better than coronavirus.
Yeah.
Automatically, I assume I'm gonna get sick. I don't want to talk about it in that way. So that was really intellectual on her part to kind of make that distinction, right?
Yeah,
so you're doing a good job with her. But yeah, just being honest with them, talking about the fact that it's not really impacting young kids at this point. Yeah. Their demographic is. I just saw the World Health Organization report the other day, and I don't know that anybody has passed away or gotten sick in that age group. If I'm not mistaken. If it was super low.
Right.
And that was across the world. Yeah. So talking to them about that, hey, people your age aren't really getting this. Not that we don't want you to wash your hands and be careful.
Right.
But this is not really happening to people your age. Also, if you see that your baby is struggling or babies are struggling, doing breathing exercises with them, talking to them about deep breathing and talking to them about, hey, you're here with me. We're in this place together and we're going to be fine. And reassuring them and making sure that they see you calm. Because see, it's easy for us to tell them that when they hear you on the phone.
Yeah.
They see you drinking 3 glasses of wine per night. They smell something funny coming from another part of the house.
Oh, you're with them.
So things like that. You know what I mean? So make sure that you're conveying calmness. And I want to encourage both of you too, and anybody who's listening with young kids, that should be your motivation and empowerment to cultivate joy and peace in your own lives. Because then it's coming from an authentic place when you talk to them. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
You're not going crazy one minute and then over there like, it's okay, when they see that they already know, mom ain't being authentic because I just saw her going crazy over there in the other room. So you want to make sure that this is a time that you're modeling for them what that looks like, what joy looks like, what peace looks like, and what being able to manage your thinking looks like, right? Because that's really, ladies, in a nutshell, I want to say something, but I won't because it's not appropriate. But
we can say it.
Yeah.
No. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
Lord,
lay it on the table. No.
Listen. Hold on.
I thought you were about to say, listen, Linda. I was
like, we can, but please speak honestly and truthfully. That's what this platform is.
So what I want to say is this. Therapy is great. Okay, it's a good tool if you can have it. But there are parts of it to me that a lot of these theories and methods that are not useful. Because the bottom line is this, ladies. Everything starts in our heads. Every thought that we have, everything that goes on emotionally and mentally starts with the thinking.
Yes.
Okay? That's where it all starts. And if you can teach people how to watch their thinking and to literally be able to watch your thoughts and let them pass, right? Don't judge them. Don't jump onto them and hang on to them for dear life. If you can just manage to learn how to watch it, let them pass and stay true to your values and your peace and your joy that you're cultivating with the practices of prayer, meditation, mindfulness, and all those things, your life will be very different. So again, I love therapy, but it really, we just teaching people how to manage their thinking, because all we are as individuals are products of our experiences, right?
Right.
And all of those formative experiences that we've all had become the glasses that we wear and how we see ourselves others, and the world, right?
Yeah.
So, and all the thoughts that we have are based on those experiences. So what we're thinking comes from what we were taught about who we are, our worth, and all those things in our formative years, right? So then you put on these glasses, and that's how you're looking at everything through that, which in turn becomes your experience of life. I'm saying that if we can just get our thoughts, just begin to really consciously watch them, watch the feelings that they create in our bodies and the behaviors that leads to, you can change your life. You can.
Wow.
Yep.
Would you say journaling?
You don't have to be in therapy for 15 years, talk about the same sugar, honey, iced tea, over no 15-year period to the same person. This is therapy, and all those things only work if you're going to do the work of managing your thinking, developing and cultivating these practices that will help to create joy and get you away from, your thoughts start, whatever the worry is or the thinking is that's problematic. And then you start with the feelings in the body, and then here go my behavior. So we could just, the thoughts start, and we say, wait, hold up. I don't have to respond to this thought. I can just let it pass. I can have it, let it pass. Yeah. And then I can reframe that thing and think about it a different way, right? And then those feelings change in your body. And then you know that your cells are no longer impaired. Your immune system is no longer impaired. Your cells are functioning as they should. Your heart and liver and lungs are doing what they need to do once I reframe that thought, and then my behaviors follow suit. They're more adaptive than maladaptive. So that's kind of, to me, the big nutshell of it. That's it. Wow. Watching those thoughts and seeing how the cultivation of practices can help you really change your life and live from your values and begin to experience radical joy and peace in a nutshell.
Yana, do you have anything?
No, I was thinking about when she was saying that the one thing that kept coming to my mind was journaling, just journaling, journaling through your experience. Cause, I'm a big proponent for journaling. Terry knows this. I'm just a writer by nature. So, but I constantly sometimes revisit my previous journal entries and just see where my headspace was and just see the growth or see like how I've evolved in my thinking and how that, like you said, I mean, it's true that, everything begins with the mind, I tell this all the time to both my husband and my kids. And that's why when I tell them, like, I'm very I'm very, I don't want to say pushy, but I do make sure that we're being very proactive in stating our affirmations and really affirming each other, and just trying to practice healthy thinking, because even when I'm not a brain scientist and, I don't have a degree, although I did consider therapy, being a therapist, but I was like, ooh, that's a lot of school. But no, no, but I was just thinking, like, even when you are feeling at your lowest or, things are kind of going bad, but when you just shape your thinking to just think of something good, even when you're feeling bad, it does create a shift. It might not happen instantly, but if you continuously to train yourself, like you'll find that you're being very intentional about your thoughts, because
and can you say that word again?
Intentional.
Intentional. That's it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying you'll find that you'll become very intentional about the thoughts that surface, because I'll have moments where I'm like, oh, I hate doing this. And then I'll be like, oh, stop. Did you hear what Jesus said? Change that. You're thankful that you're able, you might not enjoy this, but thankful that you're able body, that you can get up and do this. So when you continuously stop and think about it and like I said, be intentional about the thoughts that you possess, it can, over time, change you, put you in a better mental headspace, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And And that comes with practice and being see, the bottom line is you have to be intentional about your emotional and mental space. Yeah. It's just you got it in spiritual space too, because all of that is mental, emotional, and spiritual to me are connected.
Right.
So you have to be intentional about that. Intentionality is what's going to get you from one place to the next. Period. And so that's a word that comes up so much in my practice, especially in my consultation when I talk to clients for the first time, is intention. Intention is I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to direct my attention to this. And so when you start talking about therapy and strategies for gaining good mental health and emotional health, it's being intentional about your practices, journaling, prayer, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, body movement. I think sometimes that exercising definitely to me is it's a great strategy for mental health, to improve mental health, because the endorphins and the serotonin increases and you just feel better. I call working out regularly an antidepressant. So I'm not a big medicine person. I do have clients who do take medication, and sometimes it's needed for immediate kind of stabilization, right? But
can we talk about that? I know I'll let you finish your statement, but can we talk about that too? Because destigmatizing that, that it's okay that if medication is a part of your care plan, that's for a reason and it's okay. I mean, I want to table it for now because I want you to finish your statement, but I do want to briefly touch on that if we can.
Sure. So just making sure that, in the morning times, we all get up. Let me say, I hope that I'm sure the three of us do. I can't speak for everybody. I was just in a meeting I have a day job as a nephrology social worker. And I was in a meeting with a big muckety-muck the other day, and he said, in a meeting with his leadership team, be sure to wash your hands after you have bowel movement. And I sat there and I said, now, wait a minute.
Is that the only time?
Is this needed? And so I called my mother after the meeting. My mother's like, yes, Lisa, because there's some nasty people out there.
Boo, what I be saying.
So what I was getting ready to say was that every day I'm intentional about, and I'm sure you ladies are too, getting up in the morning, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, putting on clean clothes, those kinds of things. You don't leave the house generally until you do those things, and you do them because you're intentional about them.
Yeah.
So mental health and mental health practices and strategies that I just keep talking about, so the prayer, meditation, mindfulness, those things, they have to be very much like that for us, very much a part of the routine. And people are just intentional about doing them in order for them to work for you when you need them, in order for them to create the kind of inner life that you want to have. You can't do the stuff once a month and then come and sit in my office and be like, I don't feel better. Well, that's because you're not committed to it.
Yeah.
And I tell people right up front in the consultation, if after 3 or 4 or 5 months, we're in there talking about the same stuff and I don't see this, that the tools that I'm giving you or that we're coming up with together are working, then I'm going to refer you out because I don't have time to waste. I don't want you wasting your time. So I think it's really important that if you're going to go to therapy or do these things, that you have to be intentional about your part too. If you want to feel better, medicine. So let me say this, because you're right. I'm not sure which one of you were talking about the medication, but
Yana.
There is such, oh my God. If I mention medicine to some of my clients, their whole affect changes. Like I can see them being like, I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's so many different types of medication and so many milligrams, right? You don't have to go to 100 milligrams of lithium, unless you're schizophrenic or something. But there is no shame in taking medicine in just the immediate kind of now and future, right? To get you stabilized. So if you are having panic attacks one, two, three behind, one behind the other. Can you go to work? No. Can you take care of your children in your household if you don't go to work? No. So the only alternative for you would be to get some medication for the short term so they can manage your panic attacks. Work with me or another therapist to start to create some other ways and other practices that will help you in the long term. And the two combined will get you to where you want to be. And I tell people all the time, you don't have to take this medicine from now until eternity. Like, you take it for a short time. When you feel a little more stable and able to handle your anxiety or depression, then you ask the doctor to start to take you off, or start weaning you off of the medication. The only shame there is in not getting help.
Yes.
That's the shame.
Yes.
There's no shame in taking medication if you need it.
Yes.
So I hope your listeners really understand that. And if you're working with a doctor and the one medication that you start taking maybe makes you feel funny or zones you out, you can try something else. So it's not just one medicine out there. There's a whole bunch of medicines and things that can help you. And if you want to, do it naturally, there are things that are out there for that too. There's acupuncture and naturopaths who do a bunch of wellness work. So you can go that route too.
Yes. And did you have something, Tyrion?
No, I was just going to backtrack a bit when you guys were talking about like the different methods of how we can take care of our thoughts. And Yanni, you talked about journaling, and Lisa, you talked about like just going back into our minds and allowing ourselves to have these thoughts, but not letting them to basically, take captive of how we react or how we do things in life every day. And my 2 cents, I just want to put in on that is that I agree with both of you guys 100%. And just wanted to kind of piggyback on top of that. Yana knows, like, my faith is super important to me. And I like to share it, or whenever I get the opportunity to be able to share my faith. And just from the spiritual standpoint, in the Bible, Philippians 4:8 talks about having this peace that passes all understanding.
Oh, yeah.
But it talks about you taking your thoughts and you thinking on things that are pure and true and that are lovely. And so, I feel like that just complements the things that you two both just said from a spiritual standpoint, and being able to focus your mind on things that are good. And I know that it's hard to do that, especially right now. But there's so much good, just the little bitty things that we can think about that happen to us on a daily basis. Being able to draw breath into our lungs, that's a good thing. And so just being able to think on those type of things, and from that spiritual standpoint, and God allows you to have peace just from that standpoint as well. So that's all I want to say.
Tyrion, I couldn't agree with you more. The Bible, the Torah, the Quran, holy books, inspirational readings are also tools, right? To help you, cultivate that peace. And I had not thought, I used to use that scripture all the time. Haven't used it in a while. But, one of my things is, as a man thinketh, so is he. So, whatever your thinking is, you become that thing. And that's what comes forth in your life. So if you're running around here thinking that we are now living, this is Armageddon and the world's going to end, well, if that's where your thoughts are, your world will definitely end. Absolutely. I believe that our thoughts can put you in heaven or hell, right here on earth. I ain't waiting for nothing. I'm trying to be in heaven most of the time while I'm walking on this earth. So that's my motivation, to be intentional about my inner work and my practices. I want to say this. It's like, if you want to lose 150 pounds, but you only work out once a month and you eat anything you want to.
Why are you talking about me?
You're never going to get there. You're never going to lose the weight. So it's the same thing with your mental and emotional space. If you don't incorporate these practices and then be intentional about them, you will never find the peace and joy that you want. You won't ever be able to create a space of peace inside yourself that you can always access and go back to.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Oh, well, there's so much more that we could chat and talk through on this topic, because I know I have so many more questions, but I know we're running kind of low on time. And I did have one final question as we get to our closing questions for the day. We're kind of already a little bit talking about it, and you shared some things, but what are some resources out there and available for those that may want to talk to someone or get assistance to navigate through either through this experience that is going on right now around COVID-19, or just things that they're just, still unpacking with themselves and just going through life in general?
So I would say we all have either an Android or iPhone at this point. Mm-hmm. There's so many amazing apps that you can just download to your phone. Calm is one. Mm-hmm. Headspace is another.
Yeah.
There's one that I heard that a Black young man created. It was in Black Enterprise. I can't think of the name of it.
Oh, I think I saw that too.
Yeah, my girlfriend has it. She said it's pretty neat that she's downloaded to her phone. And these apps, have different kinds of different modalities on them. So meditation, mindfulness, and other things that you can access to help you with your anxiety, to help you cultivate the peace and joy that you want in your life. As it relates to therapy, I want to say this. There's a great organization called the Open Path Collective. And I think it's openpathcollective.com, where people can access therapy that will only cost them between $30 to $60 per session. It's all done on a sliding scale. And it's a great place to find therapy that people can really kind of afford. Also, therapy for Black girls is a great space to look for therapists. I'm definitely on her referral list.
Oh, okay.
Then, yeah. Uh-huh. And I get a whole bunch of, probably 40% of my practice is from that space.
Okay. And for our listeners, just in case our listeners don't know, you're based in the Chicago area. Do you offer resources? I mean, do you assist outside of Chicago or Illinois?
Monique asked me that today, and I said, I do virtual therapy all the time, and am very open to doing it for somebody who is not necessarily in Chicago. I would have to see how that looks in terms of insurance. I don't know.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But if they were willing to pay cash, I don't have a problem opening it myself to seeing somebody who lives out of town, for sure. And all the things that I just listed are the kind of spaces where you can find either people to help you kind of navigate and unpack, through your stuff, especially during this time if you're having some real issues with anxiety. Also, talk to your PCP if you're, if push comes to shove, right? Like you are so worried, you are so panicked, you are struggling. Call your PCP and tell them that, hey, maybe I need to take something just to get me through this because I'm really struggling here with this. And I need to say this too, ladies. If anybody is listening or, and struggling with suicidal ideation or feelings that you don't want to be here, please, please, please reach out to people, reach out to your loved one, reach out to your pastor, reach out to the National Suicide Hotline, and I have the number.
We'll add that in our show notes. Yes.
Google, and it's just, if you put National Suicide Hotline, it'll pop right up. Yeah, please, 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 please reach out to those spaces if you're struggling, and if really it gets bad and you have a plan, and call 911 or go to your nearest emergency room.
Yes.
Safety is important. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh man, this is such a really, really good conversation. And Lisa, we just thank you so much for joining us. Like Yana said, I think we could definitely talk about some more things, but we would probably be here for eons. So we don't want to take up all the time. Although it's not like we got too much to do. It's not like we got anywhere to be.
Right. Our
Right.
kids will be rolling up in a minute asking for their next meal. So.
Right.
No.
But before we just kind of close things out, every episode we always ask the person that we're chatting with about if they have a word for 2020, and if so, what that word is. And so we're just gonna lay that out. And Lisa, do you have a word for 2020? And if so, would you mind sharing that with us and our listeners?
Oh, one word?
Oh. Well, I think Monique gave us two.
I would say maybe 2020. I'm gonna keep it simple and say intentionality. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just being intentional about your mental and emotional space. And I mean, as intentional as you are about brushing your teeth every day, be intentional about cultivating joy and peace in your life.
Yes.
That is the only way to me that we'll all get through this with our minds. And sanity is if we are intentional during this time of isolation, just using that time wisely to read inspirational things, listen to meditations and beautiful music and journal and all those things. So be intentional. That's my word for 2020.
Love it.
Yes, love it. Yes, yeah. I second that.
I heard that.
All right. Are there any, so I know with everything that's going on, it's kind of put like a dagger in a lot of our plans and things for 2020, but are there any works that you have, special works or things that you have in store for 2020?
I do. So I want to say real quickly that I am working on a new project. It's called Sis Take That Cape Off.
Oh.
And it's really about the Black superwoman myth.
Come on.
And how that cape has not benefited us and how it has impacted and impaired our ability to really find and cultivate joy and peace. And so we'll talk about why the cape was created, how it may have been protective in some ways, but how now it is, for the most part, and has impaired our ability to live our fullest lives. So for sure, I'm working on a bunch of stuff for online, like conversations and groups and things like that.
Yes, we'd love to learn more about that. Definitely keep us in the loop so that we can stay connected with that. So interesting. Just last week we had another therapist on, and she's more she's the mental weightologist. So hers is kind of more translating, mental health care and how it translates to, the physical pieces of you. And her platform is Girl Get Off the Couch. So we're getting off the couch and sis, we taking the cape off. So y'all just stay with us. We unpacking it all.
Go get us together this year. Get us together.
Sure. I'm going to try.
We're here for it.
Yes.
Yum, did you have anything else?
No.
Okay. Last question, Lisa. Can you tell us and our listeners how we can connect with you?
Oh, sure. So you can reach me at www.lisa, Lisa Butler, ButlerLCSW.com. That's my website. And through that, you can set up a 20-minute consultation with me if you want to. You can reach me through, I talked about therapy for Black girls. Also connected with Zen Care, which is amazing referral for therapists, and they actually do a video of you talking about what therapy looks like with you. So those are the ways that you can contact me. I don't have any business social media set up yet because I didn't want to set any up because I wanted to keep my social media space for me.
Right, I understand.
Setting up some stuff, because I wouldn't dare want my clients to be on my social media now because some things are just not appropriate, but
understood.
So, but yeah, I'm working on doing that. But right now, my website is the best way to connect with me.
Awesome. And we will link everything in our show notes for you guys. So just hop on over to that. Just go to melanatedconversations.com. You'll see Lisa's episode, and you can click and you'll find all the resources that we discussed today on today's show.
Yes.
Thank you, ladies. I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And I'm really going to shout you out now that I know that you exist, and I want to listen to you too. So this is, definitely a mutual thing. I'm so happy to be a part of the community. I really am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And you're always welcome back. So this is an open invitation.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So again, to our listeners, thank you so much for always tuning in as we amplify yet another beautiful Black voice. Our mission is always to share our stories of transformation, share our lessons, and celebrate our successes. And we have successfully, accomplished that today. We hope that you will listen to this episode more than once, share it with your friends, and, continuously tune in. And if you have a friend that wants to, to join in on the conversation, please feel free. We have time now. We're all at home. So yes, we're available to chat. But anything else before we close out today, Terry?
No. Just once again, thank you to Lisa. This is such a great conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So very nice to meet you. And I'm looking forward to all the wonderful things that you've got going on this year. Definitely be checking out your works. And that's all I got, y'all.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Well, we are.
Everybody wash your hands.
Yeah, please. Please. Practice social distancing, and think of everyone and not just yourself, because that's key. All right, you guys. So until then, melanate on that.
Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed our chat today. Keep the conversation going by heading to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leaving us a review.
Have a story of your own to share? Email us at info@melanatedconversations.com or connect with us on social media at Melanated Conversations. Till next time, keep raising your voice.